Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, we're really glad you joined us, and we hope you like what you hear. Our podcast is for people that want to either learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. And today, we're going to try to convince you that writing down your notes is much better and a way more effective way to organize and remember your stuff than typing into a computer, whether it be on a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, an application that you use to manage your time. Totally get it. You can still use those if you want to transcribe from your written notes, but we're going to argue and give you reasons why writing down your notes is a much more effective way to remember what you need to remember and organize your thoughts. So that's what it's about. Pen and paper. Old school, the old-fashioned way to take down information, organize it, and effectively remember it. That's what today is about. Not keyboards, not phone screens, good old-fashioned handwriting, pen and paper. So I know it's not popular. I know there's all sorts of applications now out there that are designed specifically for this. However, what happens in your brain when you write versus what happens in your brain when you type is very, very different. And we're going to talk through that when we're talking about it today. So the handwriting has powerful advantages that cannot be replicated with a keyboard and a screen. They just can't. And we're going to give you the statistics and or studies and or data behind that to try to convince you to flip over to this method because we think it will make a huge impact in your life. We're even going to give you a couple of methods that if you're not sure where to start, you can use. Maybe you like those methods. Maybe they kick something on in your brain to develop a method that works specifically for you. Doesn't matter what your method is. It's got to work for you, but we wanted to give you some actual, somewhere to start, some actual tips or some actual proven methods that have worked for other people. So let's jump into it. Here's our reasons why writing down your notes is a much better approach than typing them onto a keyboard or a phone. Okay, first, writing things down develops better memory retention, period. It just does. So you remember stuff way better when you write it down than you do when you type it. There was a study published in the Journal of Psychiatric News that found that handwriting engages more parts of the brain related to memory formation than typing does. In fact, students who took notes by hand consistently outperformed those who used laptops when they tested on when they were tested on the material later. So, handwritten notes, typing, same students, take a test. People who took handwritten notes performed better on the test consistently. Why? Why is that? Because handwriting slows you down just enough to force you to process a little bit deeper, to think a little bit more about what it is that you're writing down. You have to reframe the information in your own words. That helps cement it in your memory. Typing often turns into kind of mindless transcription. Think about a court reporter that's got the shorthand notes on the keyboard they type on. They're just literally hammering in whatever they hear so that they can keep up with what's said in court. It's not their job to remember it because it's all written into a transcript. But you need to remember this information, and so writing it down is going to be a huge advantage for you. So think about someone attending a training or a workshop. The person typing might leave with 10 pages of notes and hammering down anything that gets said. But they often can't recall what was said, what the key points were, what the key takeaways are, because they were mindlessly banging it into a computer. The person who's writing by hand might only have 3 pages of notes, but they've actually digested the material and they can tell you what the key points were. They can tell you what the key takeaways were. They've absorbed a lot more of the information than the person who took down more of the information. So that's tip number 1. That is argument number 1. It absolutely creates better memory retention. And here's a tip. After any important meeting, write a quick summary by hand. Don't just jot down what happened. Don't report the news. Summarize the key takeaways in your own words. That reflection alone will help lock it into your long-term memory and allow you to recall it at a much higher rate than if you type it. Okay, so that's number one. Tip number two, or reason number two, is it creates a deeper understanding of the material. Plain and simple. Typing lets you record more information faster, without a doubt. But faster isn't always better. Faster doesn't mean you understand it. Faster doesn't mean you absorbed it. When you write by hand, you have to slow down and filter what's important. And that has a huge benefit over just taking down anything and everything that gets said and then trying to memorize it later. The mental filtering leads to more critical thinking and deeper comprehension. The filtering of having to tell your hand to write down however you've summarized the idea or the concept that was just discussed has a huge impact in your brain. Research from the Learning Scientists group shows that students who take handwritten notes tend to understand and retain information more effectively because they paraphrase and synthesize the information instead of copy and pasting verbatim or mindlessly banging in exactly what they heard on a keyboard. So it makes a huge difference in how your brain processes and stores the information. The method by which you take the notes actually has a different impact and different effect on your brain. So here's a question for you. Would you rather be the person who copied the entire textbook word for word, or the person who could explain the main concepts to a 10-year-old? Writing forces you into that second category. It forces you to absorb the information, it forces you to paraphrase it, and it forces you to write it down in a way that you're going to be able to recall it, not only from looking at your notes, but it's going to get stuck in your brain easier and deeper than if you type it, plain and simple. So here's the other tip. When you're taking notes, use your own words. Imagine that you're explaining it to someone else, someone who doesn't know the topic. Don't worry about capturing everything. Focus on the key points. Focus on the big takeaways. Focus on what matters. Handwriting notes will force you to do that, which lodges it in your brain and makes it a lot easier for you to remember and recall when it's necessary. Okay, so reason number three, it improves your focus and it creates fewer distractions when you're using a pen and paper than when you're using an electronic device to capture notes. So dramatically reduces the distractions. Because let's be honest here, when you're taking notes on a laptop, it's way too easy to accidentally check your email, scroll through social media, open a new tab, do whatever on your computer, right? It's a distraction waiting to happen. Pen and paper is pen and paper. You are the only one that creates what happens on pen and paper. There are no distractions. On a computer, 1 minute you're typing lecture notes, and the next thing you know, you're watching cat videos or you're surfing Instagram, right? We all know how it works. We've all done it. And that temptation is great. You can eliminate that temptation and force focus and distraction by using a pen and paper. Handwriting notes just removes all those temptations. There's no notifications on your notepad, plain and simple. It doesn't buzz. Nothing pops up onto the paper when you're trying to do something else. It's just you and your thoughts. So you're focused, you're dedicated, you're tenacious. You're going to absorb that information much differently. Oxford Learning found that handwriting engages the brain more fully and helps you stay focused longer, partly because of the absence of digital interference. So like we talked about, being able to type, you can kind of go on autopilot and hammer stuff into your computer or your phone. And writing forces you to listen, understand, paraphrase, and record. So it engages different parts of your brain. It engages your brain more deeply when you're taking handwritten notes. So how do we do this? We can create a zone, a deep focus zone, a no distraction zone. During meetings, during planning sessions, when you really have heavy lifting to do mentally. Leave your phone out of reach. Only bring your notebook and your pen. Get rid of the distractions. Keep your computer closed, notebook and pen only. You'll be amazed how much more present and clear-headed you feel, and you'll be amazed how much more you participate in the meeting and retain the information and the key points that come out of that meeting. So huge benefits there all the way around. Okay, number 4. Handwriting versus typing increases creativity and expression. So, plain and simple, it sparks creativity in your brain. Typing is linear and structured. Handwriting is fluid. You can doodle, you can draw arrows, you can write sideways, you can map your thoughts visually. There's no end to what you can do with a pen and paper. On a keyboard, it's right? You're just kind of hammering stuff in there, and it creates different connections in your brain when you write. And like we've talked about, it forces you to synthesize the information. Creativity researcher Virginia Berniner has shown that writing by hand stimulates parts of the brain that support idea generation and storytelling, especially in children, but also in adults. So you're engaging a different part of your brain when you're writing than you do when you're typing. Think of great writers and thinkers of the past. Many of them kept handwritten journals and notebooks. That's not an accident. That's not an accident that everybody that's in that field or everybody that took those things seriously wrote things down. There's something about the tactile act of putting a pen to paper that helps ideas flow more freely. Plain and simple. So, start your own journal. Maybe it's a thinking journal. Maybe it's a notebook. Maybe it's call whatever you want. Doesn't matter. It's not for perfect thoughts. It's not for everything to be just so. It's just for ideas. It can be messy. It can be chaotic, but it creates different activities in your brain, and it creates storytelling, like we talked about, storytelling and idea generation. So it's a creative win to write instead of typing. Don't put pressure on yourself. It's not about output. It's not about hitting a quota. It's about being creative and letting the ideas flow more freely in your head. Plain and simple. Okay, and then tip number 5, writing is going to create better organization and recall in your mind than typing is going to. Plus, you can organize handwritten notes in any way that you want. Maybe you're really good on software programs, but most of the apps have a structure. Most of, unless you're an expert on Word or an expert on Excel, it's harder to format those. On a pen and paper, you can do anything you want. Plus, digital notes tend to get lost in folders somewhere deep in the app, and then you're searching forever. Where did I put that? What folder is it in? What did I name that file again? My search isn't bringing anything back. And you spend all this time looking for the notes that you don't remember because you typed them, instead of the handwritten notes that you do remember, and they're very easy to access, right? So there's, if you're not sure what to do, there's systems that we included links to at the bottom of the page. The two that we found that we thought were worth mentioning are the Cornell method and the Zettelkasten method. So Zettelkasten is a German word. I can't remember the translation. It's like notebook or note cards or something of that sort. But this system gives you a structure by which to take notes that makes it easier to recall. You don't have to use it. Use whatever you want. Doesn't matter to us. But if you weren't sure where to start, we wanted to give you a couple of examples to maybe get the ideas flowing in your brain so you could come up with a system of your own that works. Maybe one of these systems works perfectly for you and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's great. But if you have a system, it's going to make it a lot easier to go back through your notes when you want to review them again. So, like the Cornell method, it has you divide the page into 3 sections: notes, cues, and summaries. And that makes reviewing and studying much more effective. The Zettelkasten, on the other hand, uses a system of linking ideas through short, connected notes. So different approaches, different versions, but the commonality they have is you're writing these things down. And the writing is what creates the different thoughts and the different connections in your brain. So choose a system that fits your style. Use titles, use dates, use tags. Maybe you can keep a table of contents at the front of each notebook so you can easily find what you need later. You can organize it however you want. The key is to organize it in a way that works for you specifically, because the whole point of doing this is to retain and understand the information you're trying to absorb better. And handwriting these notes and handwriting your key takeaways is going to make that happen. Okay? So, how do we do this? How do we build a handwriting habit? Let's say you're convinced. Let's say we've won you over and you want to start doing this. So the first thing you got to do is make sure that you've got a notebook with you at all times. So maybe it's a small notebook you can keep in your pocket. Maybe it's a big notebook if you know you're going to a meeting. Doesn't matter. If it's somewhere there near you, you've got a notebook and a pen, you're way more likely to use it. And then you've got to create a daily ritual. Maybe it's 5 minutes in the morning. Maybe you do it right after you eat lunch. Maybe you do it at night before you go to bed. Doesn't matter when you do it, but you've got to have a consistent time where, hey, it's time to write my ideas down. And you're going to write down your thoughts, your goals, your reflections, go back through your day. However you do it, doesn't matter, but you've got to be consistent about it. And that's the key, is you've got to use the tools. And the tools are pen and paper. It's that simple. And you can organize that and make it any way you want, but it's going to create different thought processes in your brain. It's going to engage different areas of your brain, and it's going to allow you to organize and retain information much, much better than you are able to now. So that's the argument, guys. I hope that you give this a shot, because we've been doing this since we were a kid. We've tried electronic methods. We've tried Excel. We've tried Word. We've tried multiple organizational apps. None of them work the same for us as writing things down and going back through our notes. So hope it works for you. Give it a shot. So James puts it up over here every day. Don't forget, head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. We've got links to our social media accounts there. And we do a newsletter every weekday that we publish that you can subscribe to on our website. So, and please, please, please like, comment, share, subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. Super helpful for us if you're able to do that. This episode is going to air on a Wednesday. Hope your week is going well. It's hump day. Yeah. Hope the rest of your week goes well. Thanks so much for checking out the channel. We will see you on the next episode.